When I was a kid in Sunday school, this nun, she used to say, stick your hand out. I stick my hand out, whap, she'd knock me across the knuckles with a steel-edged ruler. So one day I says, when she told me, stick your hand out, I says, no. She whacked me right across the face with the ruler. Same thing.
Hello to all the classic people that are returning. I'm glad you're back. I want to welcome any new visitors. As a technical note, references and citations are listed for each show on the site at classicmovierev.com. Today on the Classic Movie Reviews podcast, we are taking on The Friends of Eddie Coyle, 1973. Since Robert Mitchum was one of the top film noir guys, I figured we could look at one of his films to begin the neo-noir group. Neo-noirs consist of films that have noir traditions but were made starting in the early 70s or perhaps a bit earlier. For today's film, Vincent Canby of the New York Times said on June 27, 1973, quote, is a good, tough, unsentimental movie about the last days of a small-time Boston hood. The Friends of Eddie Coyle is so beautifully acted and so well set in and around Boston's pool halls, parking lots, side streets, house trailers, and bar rooms that it reminds me a good deal of John Huston's Fat City. It also has that film's ear for the way people talk, for sentences that begin one way and end another, or are stuffed with excessive pronouns. What you don't know, it don't bother you, a friend might say to Eddie. Unlike Fat City, however, The Friends of Eddie Coyle is interested in plot and narrative suspense. The film splits its attention between Eddie as he slowly evolves into a stool pigeon in an effort to stay free. Mitchum's excellent support are Peter Boyle as a bartender who deals in larceny and contract murder on the side, and Richard Jordan as a young detective who looks deceptively soft, talks much like the hoods he is tracking, and is genuinely fascinated by the game he must play with them. The detective's manner with Eddie is direct, absolutely straight, but he is always pushing him. You help Uncle, Uncle will help you, he tells Eddie. It's fairly typical of everything that's wrong in Eddie's life that when he decides to turn in several associates, he is 12 hours too late. Someone else has squealed before he could, unquote. The great film critic Roger Ebert said of the film, quote, he gives us a man, invites our sympathies for him, and then watches almost sadly as his time runs out. And The Friends of Eddie Coyle works so well because Eddie is played by Robert Mitchum, and Mitchum has perhaps never been better, unquote. This movie is rated 7.5 on IMDb.com and is much better than that. On RottenTomatoes.com, it has a better 100% on the tomato meter and 88% audience approval. So let's move into this new form of noirs, neo-noirs. Actors.
Right, and I'm a Shakespearean actor.
The great film noir actor Robert Mitchum played Eddie Fingers Coyle. Mitchum was initially covered in the great film noir Out of the Past, 1947. Peter Boyle played the double-dealing bartender Dylan. Boyle was first discussed during the great comedy Young Frankenstein, 1974. Prolific character actor James Tolkan played the man's contact man. Tolkan was introduced in Back to the Future, 1985. The Beard, played by Jack Kehoe, was first covered during The Sting, 1973. Richard Jordan played federal agent Dave Foley. Jordan was born in 1937 in New York City. Born to a well-heeled family, Jordan was educated in private schools in Manhattan and Connecticut. He began acting while in prep school, and this led him to working in summer stock. He attended the Sherborne School in England. He then attended Harvard, where he was active in the drama club. After graduating from Harvard, he began acting on stage and debuted on Broadway in 1961. He was very successful in acting and directing off-Broadway. He spent 8 years working with the New York Shakespeare Festival beginning in 1963. Jordan began working on television in the 1960s, but did not turn to movies until 1971. He has had so many good roles beginning with the Western Lawman, 1971. Other films include The Friends of Eddie Coyle, 1973, The Yakuza, 1974, as a dedicated Sandman in Logan's Run, 1976, Dune, 1984, Romero, 1989, The Hunt for Red October, 1990, and his final film, Gettysburg, 1993. Jordan had to stop acting because of a brain tumor, and he died in 1993 at the early age of 56. Stephen Keats played Jackie Brown, the gun seller that drove around in a bright yellow car. Keats was born in 1945 in New York City.
I'm walking here! I'm walking here!
He graduated from high school for performing arts. Fame, I want to live forever. He served in the Air Force in the Vietnam War in 1965 and 66. After the military, he attended Yale School of Drama. He debuted on Broadway in 1970. Some of his better-known roles include Bronson's son-in-law in Death Wish 1974 and as Robert Shaw's pal in Black Sunday 1977. Great movie. He was prolific on television. In 1994, he was found dead from suicide. He was 49 years old. Story.
Let me explain. No, there is too much. Let me sum up.
This movie begins with a group scouting for an elaborate bank manager hostage and family kidnapping type robbery that most critics have correctly identified as having nothing to do with the plot and is just the director doing what he is good at filming. The robbery gang consists of Jimmy Scalise, Alex Rocco, and Artie Van, Joe Santos. Eddie Fingers Coyle, Robert Mitchum, goes to meet Jackie Brown, Stephen Keats, about buying guns. Coyle is very particular about the process. Coyle shows his left hand. He says he bought some guns from a guy that were traced, and the guy he sold them to was arrested and sent to prison. Friends of the guy in prison smash Coyle's hand in a drawer as a message about how to do business.
I bought some stuff from a man, I knew his name. The stuff was traced. The guy I bought it for, he said MCI Walpole, 15 to 25, still in there. But he had some friends. I got an extra set of knuckles. You put your hand in the drawer, and somebody kicks the drawer shut. Hurt like a Jeez. What makes it hurt worse? What makes it hurt more is knowing what's going to happen to you, you know? There you are. They just come up to you and say, look, you made somebody mad. You made a big mistake, and now there's somebody doing time for it. There's nothing personal in it, you understand, but it just has to be done. Now get your hand out there. You think about not doing it, you know? When I was a kid in Sunday school, this nun used to say, stick your hand out. I stick my hand out, whap, she'd knock me across the knuckles with a steel-edged ruler. So one day I says, when she told me, stick your hand out, I says, no. She whacked me right across the face with the ruler. Same thing.
Coyle complained that $80 is too much for a handgun. Wow. Jackie says he can get machine guns. Dylan, Peter Boyle, is a bartender in a small hole-in-the-wall bar. He has connections with Artie Van and says Coyle wants to meet to connect with Jimmy Scalise. Artie sets up a meeting with Coyle. Jackie in his bright yellow car drives into a gravel pit in Tipple. He meets the Beard, Jack Kehoe, and picks up a load of pistols. Jackie tells too much information to a man that is obviously a junkie. Coyle gets the bag of guns from Keats and hides him in the trunk before going into Dylan's. He tells Dylan that he is looking at a 3 to 5 rap and he has lost the appeal.
You're not looking too good.
I'm looking at 3 to 5, it seems like.
What about the appeal?
Lost the appeal. Lost the motion for reconsideration. Got to surrender up there for execution of sentence in a week or two.
Coyle has done a job for Dylan and has gotten arrested. Coyle doesn't want his wife and kids to go on welfare. Dylan can't or won't help him. While they talk, Artie removes the guns from the trunk of the car. Later, Dylan goes to the plaza by the government center. He meets with federal agent Dave Foley, Richard Jordan. Dylan is working as a stool pigeon for $20 a week. He tells that Scalise has been contacting Coyle. The kidnapping bank robbery takes place. While they hold the bank manager's family hostage, they conduct a precision operation on the bank. The robbery goes off without a hitch, but in modern times they have left a ton of evidence, such as putting duct tape on their coveralls and using it to cover the camera. The tape would leave DNA, a fiber sample, and possibly fingerprints. The Coyle household runs like a typical lower economic household. They have trash to take out and chores to do. Coyle and his wife talk about him going to jail and what will happen to the family. Coyle meets Foley at a park. Foley has a great Mustang. Coyle tells Foley that he has some information on some machine guns. He wants Foley to talk to the U.S. attorney about his case. Coyle is still protecting Dylan. Coyle has done some ratting, but he has never given any real good info to the government.
Anyway, I was wondering if maybe there wasn't some way we could handle it.
Like me saying hello to somebody?
Well, I was thinking a little stronger than that. I was thinking in terms of maybe you talking to the prosecutor up there and having him drop a word to the judge how I've been helping my uncle like a
Well, I would. But then again, you haven't been.
What? I gave you a couple of calls.
Yeah, you give me some real stuff, too. You tell me about a guy that's going to get hit. 15 minutes later, he gets hit. You tell me about some guys in a job, but you don't tell me till they're coming out the door with the money. That's not helping Uncle Eddie. You got to put your whole soul into it.
Foley says he will need the guns, the seller, and the buyer for a deal. Foley tells all the info from his informant to his boss. They decide to put a wire in Dillon's bar. Jackie drives his bright yellow car to meet two revolutionaries, Andrea, Margaret Ladd, and Pete, Matthew Cowles, that want to buy guns. Yes, that is correct. There were revolutionaries in Boston in 1773 and 1973. They want machine guns to rob a bank. They make a deal for 5 M16s and 500 rounds of ammo for $2,000. What a bargain. Coyle makes some phone calls, so he sends his wife away so she can't hear. He sets up a meet with Jackie and demands his other guns. Jackie says he can't do it. Coyle gives him a lecture about keeping his word.
One of the first things I learned is never to ask a man why he's in a hurry. All you got to know is I told a man that he could depend on me because you told me I could depend on you. Now, one of us is going to have a big, fat problem. Another thing I learned, if anybody's going to have a problem, you're going to be the one.
Coyle uses the threat of the mob to demand delivery the next afternoon. Jackie is traveling in his yellow car with a clean-cut guy. Finally, he asks the guy for 25 to 30 more M16s. When they get to the pickup point, Jackie is very suspicious. He forces the short-haired guy out at gunpoint and demands they bring the M16s to him. The three guys are soldiers and have the M16s. The first guy brings the guns down the hill. This is my weapon and this is my gun. This one's for killing and this one's for fun. Jackie pays off the guys. Scalise, Artie, and company pull off another kidnapping-style bank robbery. This time they kill a man that triggers an alarm. Coyle meets Artie in a parking garage. They discuss why the robbery went wrong. Artie gives Coyle some money and wants more guns. Artie tells that Dillon is a good hitman, but should not be trusted. Dillon meets with Foley and is talking about the bank robberies and working on a deal with the government. Jackie, in his bright yellow car, meets Coyle in a supermarket parking lot. Coyle picks up the new guns. Jackie drops that he has to be at the Sharon station at 3:30. When they make the transfer, Coyle sees the M16s in the trunk. Coyle calls Foley and the feds stake out the train station. Jackie is waiting in his bright yellow car. Foley gets out of a truck driven by some agents. The three agents take sniper positions. Andrea and Pete arrive in their van. Jackie wants to wait a couple of hours to see what cars leave the parking lot. He is guarding against Andrea and Pete, not the cops. The two revolutionaries leave until 5:30. Foley decides to bust Jackie. Jackie hauls ass in his bright yellow car, but after a couple of crashes, the feds get him. Jackie thinks he knows who set him up, and he says he will take care of the rat himself. Coyle and Foley meet in a diner. Foley jerks Coyle around, and then he says he's already made the call. He says the bust is a good beginning, but he will have to give Foley more. The real problem is that he never ratted out the guy that stole the booze that was in the truck he was driving.
How'd it come out?
It went fine, just fine. He had 5 M16s, just like you said.
Now that does it, huh?
Does what?
You know, you said you wanted a reason? That thing we talked about, that thing up in New Hampshire there. You said you needed a reason?
These guys grabbed you fair and square. And you wouldn't plead out on it. You made him go through a trial. You wouldn't play ball.
He wanted me to cop out on the guys who stole the stuff.
Coyle doesn't want to be a permanent Fink. Coyle goes to see Scalise. He lives in a trailer, but it's pretty nice compared to where Coyle lives. Coyle brings in the guns he picked up earlier in the day. Scalise wants more guns. Coyle reminds Scalise about his impending incarceration. Dillon has told Scalise that he thinks Coyle is working for the feds. The general opinion is that Coyle is a stand-up guy. They head out on another kidnapping robbery. They break into the house and are waiting for another bank manager and his wife to come into the kitchen. Suddenly, Foley and some agents bust in and make the arrest. Coyle goes to a bar to meet Foley. Coyle wants a new ID. Finally, Coyle offers to give up the bank robbers. Foley lets him know that the robbers have already been arrested.
I'm ready to deal with you.
It's your decision, Eddie.
Suppose I was to give you those guys for knocking off the banks.
Eddie.
How far would you go for that?
Last night I would have gone the distance, Eddie, but that was last night. I guess you haven't seen the paper. You're too late, Eddie. It don't happen without you.
Dillon goes to a subway station and meets the man's contact man, James Tolkien, a mid-level mob guy. Dillon throws out the name Coyle as the rat. Dillon is told that the man wants him hit that night. Coyle, who looks gut-punched, heads to Dillon's bar for a drink. Coyle wonders who set up the robbers. Dillon is more philosophical. He says it's just business. Dillon gets a call from the contact man. Dillon says if he gets paid, he might be able to do the job that night. Dillon says he has tickets to the Bruins versus the Blackhawks hockey game. Dillon and Coyle are at the hockey game, and Dillon says he is waiting for his nephew to show up. The kid, Michael McCleary, finally arrives. After the game, Dillon says that they are going to meet some girls. The kid offers to drive them to Coyle's car. I wonder how Coyle is going to get out of this. I mean, he's a star. Coyle passes out in the passenger side of the car.
Where's your car?
He's out.
Suddenly, Dillon pulls out a .22 pistol and shoots Coyle in the back of the head.
Jesus Christ, hey, slow down, you stupid shit. You want to get arrested or something?
I got nervous. Jesus Christ, that was loud.
That's why I use a .22.
Yeah, that was loud enough.
I ever let off a 38 2-incher, and here you go right off the road.
Is he dead?
If he's not now, he's never going to be.
They drop the car off in a bowling alley parking lot next to a similar vehicle. A similar car was left in the lot so the cops would think it's the same one that was there already. Not shown, but the plan is Dillon throws the gun in the river, the kid drops him off, takes his payment from the glove box, and abandons the car in a bad neighborhood. Dillon meets with Foley. Dillon talks about pigeons and how it is impossible to get rid of them. He says he can't speak about Coyle. They part and the movie ends. I'll be right back with conclusions and the world-famous short summary, following a word from our sponsors. Summary. Damn! So the Dillon character gets Coyle in trouble, rats the other guys out to the police, frames Coyle for being a rat, and gets paid to kill him. Damn! If that ain't film noir, neo-noir, I don't know what is. Alex Rocco, who played Scalise, and in an earlier film played Mo Green, was associated with the Winter Hill Gang and is sometimes reported to be a former member. The Winter Hill Gang included Whitey Bulger among others. Rocco introduced Mitchum to Howie Winter, who was one of the top leaders of the gang, so Mitchum could better understand his role. In the hockey game between the Chicago Blackhawks and the Boston Bruins, Bobby Orr, Eddie Johnson, and Tony Esposito can be seen playing. I thought I saw Derek Sanderson, but he was playing for Philly by then. World famous short summary: with friends like these, who needs enemies? I hope you enjoyed today's show. You can find connections to social media and email on the site at classicmovierev.com or in the podcast show notes. If you enjoyed this show, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. If you've already subscribed, you can tell a friend, colleague, or family member about the show, or leave a review at Apple Podcasts. It really helps the show get found. If you want to comment, suggest a movie, or help out, contact me by email at jec@classicmovierev.com. Beware the Moors, and wash your hands.